All right, this is just going to be a very, very bare bones intro to using an EQ or an equalizer. So I've got this track pulled up with a bazillion different instruments in it, but we're going to look at an EQ in a very, very basic way. So I'm going to choose a electric guitar here. We're going to solo that and listen to just this area of it. In fact, you know what? I think we're going to do this electric guitar here. Okay, so let's play with an EQ here and talk about how they work and what we can do with different sounds. This is by no means going to be a demonstration of how to make this sound better. It's only going to be a demonstration of the effect that EQ has on a sound like this and in general just how to use EQs. So this is the basic EQ that comes with Logic. It's called the channel EQ. It can be a little bit intimidating because you have all these numbers all over the place, but you don't need to know what these numbers mean. You just need to know what they represent, really. So basically, you can think of this like a graph. We have this midline and we have this vertical line here. And the vertical line is going to represent loudness. So again, ignore the numbers here, the 60, the 55, the 50, ignore that. This is just loudness. So something that falls very low on this graph is very quiet. Something that falls very high on this graph is very, very loud. So that is the vertical axis here. And if I look at the horizontal axis, this is frequency. So loudness vertically, frequency horizontally. So what the heck does frequency mean? It's going to relate directly to pitch. That is high things or low things. Things that sound really, really tinny are going to be on this right side, which is all the high frequencies. Things that sound big and heavy and low are going to be down here. Things that sound mid are going to be in the middle. So, you know, your bass guitars and kick drums and stuff like that are all going to be down here in this area. And your vocals are going to be in sort of this area, depending if male or female. This is going to be where the real loud part of the vocal. Vocals will actually cover a big range, but there's different areas that you might want to boost. And then, you know, sizzle, things like hi-hats and cymbals and the breathiness of vocal are all up in this high range here. So what we do with an EQ is we target a specific area, a specific frequency, and we turn all of the sound in that frequency up or down. So every sound has lots of different frequencies represented in that sound, and we can turn certain frequencies up or down within that sound to just sort of shape the way the sound is. So if you think about like color, if you have like the color blue, some blue paint, you can add black to it or white to it to make it darker or lighter. It's the same thing here. Every sound I can add loudness to it, or I can pull some quietness into the sound by turning things up or down. So if I'm turning this up or down, I'm turning up or down anything around the 200 frequency band. Again, you don't need to know what 200 means because I'm going to show you you can just use your ears. You don't have to know what these numbers mean. You can spend a lot of time researching them, but it's better to use your ears always. So let's listen to this guitar. This is what it looks like. And this is the benefit of using an EQ like this, is we have this thing called the analyzer, which shows us what that sound looks like. In fact, if I were to turn Logic's output down all the way, I don't hear it anymore, but the sound is still going into the EQ, so I can actually still see it. So what would we do with a sound like this? Well, that's up to you. That's up to you. But what you should do is know how to identify where in the frequency band this sound is happening, and then what happens if I turn this area up, or this area up, or this area down, and get an idea for that. So let's play with that a little. This is all very spiky, jagged stuff. That's going to be the high frequencies. So listen to what happens when I turn the high frequencies up or down. Listen to what happens when I turn the low frequencies up or down. Now, another way of understanding EQ is instead of using these little guys, which just turn up a sort of a range of frequencies centered around the little bubble that you move, or they turn them down, is to think about them in terms of high pass and low pass, meaning what if I allowed only the higher frequencies to come through and cut everything else? Or what if I allowed only the low frequencies to come through? So a low pass would allow the lows to pass through. And the low pass is this guy right up here. When I turn that on, in fact, that's the universal symbol for sort of a low pass filter. And you would see these on microphones. You see the symbol all over the audio world. It's a low pass filter. So I turn this on. Nothing has changed yet because I have to tell it at what frequency do I want to cut things off. So you can see this just visually. If I put this here, I'm allowing the low stuff to come through, and all of this sort of pinky purple, that's all being eliminated. Okay, so listen to what that sounds like as I dial it in. So a low pass filter makes things sound, if you really pull it in like this, it's going to make things sound muffled, and that's how you get that like music happening behind the closed doors, or like you're outside the club and you hear the music. This is how you get that effect. And you've heard in music many times that people will automate these, meaning they have software that will actually automatically move this, and it will cause this effect. Okay, so that is a low pass filter. Let's try a high pass filter where we cut out the lows and just allow the highs. So that's where you get that like radio or like the walkie-talkie effect, where it sounds like the music is coming out of like an old radio, or it's over the phone or something like that. And you've heard this being automated as well. So we got the low pass and high pass. These are these guys on the edge. And then we have the little bubbles in the middle. These are called band pass, because what they do is they allow a specific band of frequencies. That's what we call like a group of frequencies is a band. We call that, if I were going to be anywhere in the 1K band, you might say. And we allow 1K as well as frequencies on either side of the 1K to pass through or to not pass through. We can also change the size of the band. You see this green highlight? You can see as I turn this up, I can change the size of like how wide the band is, and that's going to be down here. These guys here, I can change which frequency. I can also do it by dragging it, but that's what these numbers down here represent, turning it up or down. And then this guy down here represents the band width as I drag that up or down, band width. So if it's a really thin band, then when I turn this up or down, it's only affecting a tiny area. Okay, if it's a very wide band, it's affecting a much larger area. And so there's all different types of EQs that people use, and people use all different types of methods. And if you look in EQ presets, there's going to be all kinds of presets for these. You can look and see there's all different kinds of presets for EQs. And they're all going to be, usually they're pretty light, sort of straightforward EQs. Like this is an electric guitar. If I go to here, guitar, and I say maybe there's a, let's say electric funk guitar. You can see what this is doing is it's boosting, it's making this bubble here, and it's boosting these frequencies. But there's so many different presets, and you can play with these presets. I think it's probably more important to just move them around yourself and get used to the sounds that they make. Now, before I end the video, I just want to give you sort of a impression of what this can do for something more than just guitar. So I'm going to solo all of these. These are all drums and percussion. We're just going to listen. It's just going to be a drum set. Now this hasn't been mixed or EQ'd, so it's just raw audio, and I'm going to apply an EQ to all of them together, just so you can hear how the effect it has on a whole group of sounds. Okay, so let's put an EQ on this, and we'll see what it looks like. And we'll start pulling some things up and around. So there's a real basic EQ curve I just created for these drums, and if I listen to it before and after, I don't know if it'll sound better, but we're going to see. Here it is before, here it is after. Yeah, probably would do more of this. Before, after. So EQing an entire drum set isn't super common, but sometimes you might do it. And this is just maybe a cleaner example of how a simple EQ curve can change it radically. When I'm teaching people about EQ, a lot of times people will watch me do things and they will simply say, well, why did you move, this there? Why did you turn that up there? And that's a great question. And the answer is you have to use your ears and you have to be able to listen to a sound and say, what do you like about it? What don't you like about it? And then how do you react to it? So I made these changes because at first I felt like there was way too much low end. So I cut some low end out here. And I then boosted what was there. It's a very common trick. You cut out the super low stuff and then boost the less low stuff to make sure we're still retaining some of that low end. I pulled some top end in. I actually went, I think, a little bit too high on the first pass, and I pulled it back. But this was trying to get some more cymbals and some more of the crispiness of the snare. And then I pulled some middle out just to try to have a better contrast to make sure if I pull some middle out, then the low and the high are going to come through better. If I did this, right, you might say, well, you could do this. But if I do that, if you look at this EQ curve, I mean, effectively what I've done here is just turn the whole thing up a little bit. That's all I've done. I haven't actually shaped the audio. I've just turned most of it up a little bit. I cut out a little low end. But if I do this, well, now we have a very different sound than what we started with. So just a quick demonstration again, before and after. So I'm not saying that that sounds necessarily better, but you can hopefully hear that it does sound different. So that's a quick demo of EQ in Logic.